Homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm, or welcome back. This is a fun little video that's really just kind of a proof of concept. This spring in late June, early July, I went to the Homesteader Conference in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the Modern Homesteading Conference. And one of the sessions that I attended was by Bevan Cohen, and I bought this book at that same conference, which is The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, Growing, Foraging, and Pressing. And he gave a very, very good talk on how to press your own seed oils. I don't know about you guys, I'm not a prepper in the sense that I don't have a bunker under my house and I don't spend a lot of time hoarding ammo, but I do often think about, if things got weird, if we ended up with another COVID situation, et cetera, what are the things that I can do to make my homestead more sustainable? So I'm just always looking with an eye towards that kind of thing. And I don't know about you guys, but in terms of fats that you cook with, if we were in a long-term situation where we couldn't get normal store-bought things like olive oil or avocado oil, which are the two big kind of popular liquid oils that are used all the time in the homesteading community, I don't know about you, but I do not want to cook everything in lard and tallow. I know they're very popular and it's a bit of a health bent that people think that they've been lied to about saturated fat and that tallow and lard are super healthy for you. I don't know if I really believe that. I think everything in that sense needs to be taken with a grain of salt. If you look at the 1900s, so take 1900 for instance, you can look up the morbidity and mortality charts for the United States for 1900. And I'll put some stuff on the screen because I'm not going to remember the exact ages. But the lifespan was much, much shorter than it is currently. And once you eliminate the causes of death that were from bacteria, simply because we did not yet have antibiotics, and so a lot of people were dying from simple bacterial infections that they couldn't fight off. Once you eliminate those from the list, the top killer was still heart disease. So I'm thinking about my great-grandpa or my great-great-grandpa living on a homestead in Utah or in Idaho or in Montana, and they were eating lard and tallow all the time, and it was grass-finished because this was long before the days of commodity feedlot operations. So they were eating what everybody is talking about being healthy fats, and average lifespan was shorter, and people were still dying from heart attacks. My grandfather on my dad's side died of a heart attack. My grandmother on that side died from a stroke. So both of those are coronary heart disease related. Long story short, I would like to have some other options besides just eating lard and tallow in my everyday home cooking. I typically default to olive oil. I use a little bit of avocado oil as well if I want to make something that doesn't have the flavor of olive oil in it. But both of those things are not something that you can grow on the homestead easily, at least not in my Zone 7A Southeast Washington location. So I am interested in seed oils and nut oils that I can press myself. And that includes things like sunflower, walnut, hazelnut, and weirdly, and I got this from the conference and from the talk that I went to, acorn. Acorns can be very bitter and they often need to be leached repeatedly in water in order to remove the tannins. But evidently the oil part of acorns is not the part that contains the bitter tannins. And so you can actually press acorns for oil. And I'm excited and delighted to try that out as an experiment. So that's going to be a future video. And then the other one is winter squash seed oils. So pumpkin seed, butternut squash, all of those can also be pressed for oil. The nice thing about this particular setup is you're doing it in small amounts. So you're pressing, a couple of ounces at a time, and then you're using them fresh. And then when you need more, you press more. And so you're getting the freshest oil. They are not rancid. They have not been oxidized. And so this isn't something that's been sitting on a shelf for a year or often more than that. It's something that you're going to press yourself really fresh. And so I'm just excited about that whole idea. I thought the talk was wonderful and I got very excited about it. And so in the process, I bought one of these little presses, and I believe this comes out of Holland. I'll put it on the screen. It's a Piteba, and it's a home seed press. And so we decided to start out with some sunflower seed oil because we happen to have, as you guys know, if you've looked at any of my garden tours, I have a huge row of sunflower seeds, and they're just a random mixed variety of sunflower seeds, some of which I picked up at Seed Swaps. And so I had some big sunflower seed heads this year that I saved, and we took the seeds out of them and decided to press them for oil. Sunflower seeds, if they're just random ornamentals, are really not the best oil sunflower seeds. What you really want to grow is black oil sunflower seeds, and I do plan on doing that next year for this express purpose. The amount of oil in a black oil sunflower seed is dramatically higher than the amount of oil in just your run-of-the-mill sunflower seed. So this was really just a proof of concept because we had the sunflowers and I wanted to see how it worked. So home-pressed sunflower seed oil. Let's get started.
So here's my bowl of sunflower seeds, and I kept picking out little bits of plant matter. It's one of those things you can become kind of obsessive with, but I got most of it out. This is the little oil press. You need some heat in order to get things flowing, and this is an oil lamp. This runs on lamp oil. We did adjust it from the first time that we got it going, but it has a little bit of a flame, and you let it preheat for about 10 minutes in order to get that chamber nice and warm. It's low enough temperature when it's actually moving that you're not going to actually cook the oil. The oil stays under 120 degrees, but it definitely helps keep things moving. Sure. It is very sooty. That lamp oil is not the cleanest burning stuff in the world. We did this indoors just because it was pouring rain when we were playing with this. But I would highly recommend running this outside rather than inside. It was very, very sooty and kind of smoky. So the sunflowers go in. It does make a pretty terrible noise until it gets lubed up, so don't be alarmed at that. And then the end cap on this has an additional end depending on what type of things you're grinding. And so the machine comes with instructions of whether to include that end piece or not. With sunflowers, because you're grinding with the shell on, you leave that end cap off in order to let stuff come out of there. If it's something super fine, it will actually come out some small holes that are on the sides, but in this case, you need to leave that end open. We accidentally had the rubber band that holds this cup on kind of right where the oil is supposed to come out, so we had to stop and make an adjustment there. And now our sunflower seeds are starting to come out the end. And this is surprisingly dry. This matter is very, very dry. You do need a little bit of moisture in your seeds in order for this to work. And they actually have instructions that come with the machine on how to test that, and that you need to have a certain percentage of oil. And sometimes you need to get your seeds wet and put them in a covered container and let them sit and hydrate in order for this to work properly. And we could have put a bigger funnel on this and poured a lot more seeds in at one time. But again, proof of concept. One of the other tricky parts was finding a container to collect the oil from that was small enough to fit in there. That is not a very big spot. And so a normal 4-ounce jelly jar, too big, too wide. So we ended up digging through the cupboards to find something that everything would fit in. I think one of the other problems we were also having was that the oil, when it did start to come out, we were getting a little bit of leakage around where that end cap screws on. And then some of it was actually also running towards where the flame was, which is definitely not a safe thing. And so I think if I were to do this again, or when I do this again, I'm going to figure out some way of putting something around there just to keep oil from accidentally running towards the flame if it is dripping in that direction. So not the greatest, but we did start to actually see some liquid coming out of this. We weren't 100% sure it was oil at the time, but it definitely worked. And this is hard to crank, but not impossible to crank. I could definitely crank it myself. We took turns, so not that hard to crank. And you can also hook this up to a motor. You can hook this up to a bicycle. There's directions for both of those things on the internet. But here is our oil. It looks terrible right now, because it's all mixed in with the rest of the residue. And this is a little taster cup from a beer tasting we did many years ago. It's probably 4 or 5 ounces total. So, from that big bowl of not very oily sunflower seeds, we probably ended up with, I don't know, I'm guessing that's about half full. So maybe a couple ounces of oil.
That's it.
And we blew that out as soon as we could because it was definitely smoking up the house.
This is going to be hot. Be careful. Don't drop that.
A little murky.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have some settling happening for sure.
First squeeze-ins.
That's fun though. Very cool.
So you need to let your oil settle for a day or so before you decant it off. I figure these are going to make really nice fire starters because they're super dry. Getting the residue out of this end cap, definitely a bit of a challenge. Things wedge in there pretty good. And you can see I had that wick about as thin as I could get it in terms of the size of the flame. So here's the following morning. So probably 12, 14 hours later, you can see it hasn't completely settled out, but we've definitely got some decent settling where you can start to see the actual sunflower oil. And then this is the afternoon that same day. And you can run this through cheesecloth, you can run this through a coffee filter. I'm running it through a permanent reusable coffee filter. And I'm specifically trying not to get the stuff that's in the bottom. So I'm just filtering off the oil that's in the top. I let this sit for another day and then I pipetted off a little bit more of the oil that was on top of that residue about 24 hours later, because there was some stuff there that I couldn't pour out without pouring some of the residue out with it. And that's what's left. And then here is our beautiful, very bright yellow sunflower oil. And this stuff is potent. It's very strong. We used it in a salad, and I ended up using a tablespoon of this and then 2 tablespoons of olive oil just because it was strong enough that I thought it was going to overwhelm the salad. But really delicious. These machines are not cheap. You can get them without all the extra bells and whistles and extra parts for about $190 right now. Bevan, when he gave his talk, said that the cheap Chinese knockoffs are exactly that. They're really terrible quality, and that if you're going to do a hand-pressed oil, this is the machine that you want. So if this is in your budget or on your Christmas list, maybe give this little machine a try, Tribe. Thanks for watching, Tribe. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment, and share. I have new content coming out every week.